Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers on the East Coast of the United States of America. Welcome to the United States. Well, welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, the United States of America has a tremendous partnership with Canada in our fight for freedom and liberty. Now, tonight, Monday nights, as you know, this is the America's edition, the United States edition of the Patriot Desk. And every Thursday night, we have the Canadian edition. But this Thursday night, the bad news is we're not going to be on Thursday night, because the good news is we're going to be on Friday night, and we're going to celebrate Canada Day with our friends and neighbors north of our border. And I'll be speaking to you more about that a little later in the broadcast. But a few things, folks. I have a great guest tonight. I'm going to introduce him in a minute. He's been working very hard for many years in our fight for the right to bear arms. And he's going to be speaking to us about the Second Amendment and exactly the tremendous victory that the United States just had. When I talk about the United States, the people of this country just had in the Supreme Court with regard to the right to bear arms. There's a lot more work to do, but at least we're on our way. But a couple of things just came in, folks, and I got to tell you, I'm going to share this with you. It always seems that when we go on the air, there's some sort of breaking news at the time we're going on. But just about an hour ago, I had learned that the world leaders, and I'm going to read to you what I actually tweeted out, world leaders call for Biden to do more for Ukraine at the upcoming NATO summit. Now, I responded to that, and I actually said to the world leaders, get off your rear ends and clean up your own backyard. Americans have had enough of being the world's police force. What nerve. Folks, I've got to tell you, I have warned the American people, and this is tonight's American broadcast, and we've got a lot of now people, obviously, from the United States and Canada around the world watching. But I have warned over and over again that Joe Biden is dragging us into a Vietnam-like war all over again. I saw this happen in the early days of the Vietnam War. It was advisors, it was weapons, it was diplomacy, it was this, it was that, and it ended many, many years later with 50,000 Americans killed in action. Now we got Joe Biden, who instigated this war. And a lot of people here in America don't like to hear that. The liberals, the communists, they don't like to hear that. But tell me how this war started, and maybe I'll change my mind. In my view, it was Joe Biden that instigated this war. And it is a proxy war, again, in my view, for the United States of America. Just like Vietnam. Back in the 60s, we were somehow involved with overthrowing the government in Saigon. We didn't like the guy in office. Apparently, we had something to do with getting rid of him. And then all of a sudden, we're in a major war, a 10-year war, 10-year plus war that cost us a lot of lives. So now we've got NATO pushing us around. Now, I got to tell you something. To Donald Trump's credit, going as far back as Reagan, NATO wasn't pushing anybody around, especially the United States of America. But now they're telling Joe Biden, after we sent billions of dollars of aid to Ukraine, they're telling Biden we've got to do more. Now, my fear is, and my concern is, which I expressed a few weeks ago, is that there was a little back and forth over sending these long-range missiles to Ukraine. First, we were sending them, then we weren't, then we were sending them, then we weren't. And I was so happy when I heard we weren't, because these long-range missiles, from what I understand, can go into the Russian homeland. And if some maniac in Ukraine decides that they're going to push a button and they're going to send one of these missiles into either the Crimea or into the Black Sea Fleet or into the Russian homeland, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? The United States is going to be dragged in to a war that we are not going to be able to sustain. Absolutely, positively not. And in my view, based on what we're reading and researching and hearing, as soon as we end up in a war with Russia in Ukraine, President Xi of China may get this crazy idea that now is the time to move into Taiwan. So where does that leave the United States of America? Our military is depleted. The Joint Chiefs of Staff are more concerned about training our troops in classrooms to make sure that when you say, sir, it's a man, oh no, well, maybe it's a woman or madam, or they've got our troops so confused, they should be learning and being instructed on how to fight and win wars. But this is what has happened. Not only do we in America see this, but the whole world sees it. So I just hope to God we do not end up in a war that, frankly, I don't believe we could win at this point with Russia. But on top of that, just 15 minutes ago, I get this breaking news that NATO is mobilizing 300,000 troops, putting them on high alert. They're mobilizing 300,000 troops. Look it up, folks. We just got that news media breaking news. Why are they doing that? Why are they mobilizing 300,000 troops right now? Well, they're going to say, and what I believe they're saying is, well, they're being proactive with regard to the threats that are coming out of the Kremlin. I've got to tell you, folks, we've got some pretty bad leaders around this world that don't know how to sit down and negotiate and talk peace and harmony and try to at least get people to the table like Reagan got Gorbachev to the table, like Trump got Rocket Man over there in North Korea to the table, and even Putin to the table. We've got all these people yelling about, we're going to push this button, push that button, we're going to send missiles here. And by the way, Joe Biden's his sanctions against Russia, they're working great. They're working great. I got to tell you, got to hand it to Joe Biden. His sanctions are working so good, it's killing the American economy. The ruble is soaring. The dollar is down. We're just getting wiped out here. Joe Biden's policies are killing America. And those of you in this great, wonderful land of ours, the land of the free that I love so much and the home of the brave, those of you who continue to support Democrats, who continue to elect to office Democrats, you are electing to office the very people that are destroying our country and your children's future. Keep that in mind as we move forward. And by the way, one more thing before I introduce my guests. For those of you who are in other countries, I want you to see this. See that headline? Well, it's starting to get around. Starting to get around here in the United States. It's starting to get around in other countries. And that is another report that we're putting together that we're going to send to the right people in our United States Congress come November to take action. Trudeau's party passed a bill some time ago, I think it was around June 15th, to regulate social media and streaming. So you see this broadcast and you see other broadcasts that would go into Canada. Well, they want the power to stop it. They want to regulate. They, meaning the Trudeau government, who happens to be a good friend of President Xi's in China. They want to regulate what the people in Canada hear and what they see. You think that it can't happen here? Well, it could, except I don't believe it will happen here because we have men, American citizens, who are active, like our next guest, who's making sure that this remains of the people, by the people, and for the people. I want to introduce to you Mark Cheeseman. Mark, welcome to our broadcast.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, Mark, thank you. I know you a long time. I know you're a man that has worked so very, very hard night and day on the issue of the Second Amendment here in the United States. Now, there are a lot of people from around the world watching. They don't quite understand the necessity and our passion to keep the Second Amendment. So could we start there and help them understand why we really believe we have to sustain that right to bear arms?
Well, first of all, in the United States, the majority of us believe that the Second Amendment is, number one, a God-given right. Secondly, it's an enumerated right, and it's in the Constitution. It's a guarantee to every American citizen in the United States. The problem is that the Second Amendment is probably the most abused right in this country, in my estimation, I would say, because it guarantees that the average citizen in the United States will be able to defend themselves against a tyrannical government, the first part of the Constitution. The second part of the Constitution, the comma or the clause, guarantees an individual's right to keep and bear arms, which basically is the right to self-defense outside the home. So this is why it's highly significant and very important. There's a good reason why they put it in as the Second Amendment. It's not the 14th or the 15th or the 16th. It is the Second Amendment. And I think that was done by design for a very good reason.
Mark, what I find interesting, especially in the beginning of your fight and the fight of many people in this country to support the Second Amendment, we used to tell people, look, the Second Amendment, they're trying to take the Second Amendment away is the pathway to taking the other rights away. And it's so interesting. I find it so interesting how true those statements were way back, because they went after the Second Amendment, then the freedom of assembly, then the freedom of speech, the freedom of worship. I mean, there was a domino effect that we're still fighting in the courts, those other issues.
Yeah.
So now we have the Second Amendment. Now, a person in America, all right, under their laws, hopefully we'll have these changed. For the most part, in every state, they don't have the right to carry a concealed weapon, correct?
There were a number of outlying states that had a permitting scheme or regime. We call it a scheme or a conspiracy, where you needed to show proper cause, a justifiable need, or an urgent necessity in order to get a permit to carry a handgun outside of the home. The problem with the scheme of justifiable need or proper cause, or actually New York's good cause, they're all the same. The problem with that was it was virtually impossible to show proof of a good cause or justifiable need in a court of law. Therefore, the judge would arbitrarily deny you your permit to carry. Recently, in the past 3 or 4 years, it got to the point where it's become an outright ban on carry outside of the home.
Mark, the left, the liberals, the communists, I call them, say that if everyone is given the right to carry a weapon, that'll become the Wild West. But I've looked some interesting statistics up, and I'm finding that in the cities that have the strictest gun control laws, like Chicago, D.C., and others, that's where the most crimes being committed, in those cities. And with the cities where, like Cleveland, I got to tell you, I was in Cleveland at the Republican National Convention. They have open carry there. There were thousands of people with open carrying weapons. There wasn't one incident, not one problem. So take us down that road, this idea that, well, you know, all these people are going to have these weapons. It could be the Wild West. But I understand that you have, and the NRA and others are in support of training people with regards to their firearms.
Well, an armed society is a polite society. I believe that was Thomas Jefferson. And I think that rings true to today. But when the left or the Democrats talk about the Wild West, or everybody's going to be running around with a gun, and their heads are exploding and they're going, "Oh my God!" What they forget to understand, or what they choose to not recognize, is the fact. Now, I'm in New Jersey, so in the state of New Jersey, they use a very, very redundant permitting process. Number one, I have to have a firearms ID card. To get a firearms ID card, I have to have an extensive background check, 3 credible references. After the firearms ID card is secured, I'm sorry, it's firearms purchaser card is secured. Then, if I want to buy a handgun, I need to be 21 years old, and I have to go to my local PD or the state police website and get something called a permit to purchase. Again, I would be submitted to more references and another background check. Okay, so that's background check number 2. Now, the third one, which is the big one, is the carry permit application, where I will be submitted to another background check, 3 sets of references. I will be fingerprinted again. So there's really absolutely no doubt. There's no shadow of a doubt, because of the redundant system that New Jersey has, that I am a law-abiding citizen. I have not committed any felonies, and there is no good reason or justifiable need that I should not be able to carry a firearm in public.
But if Mark Cheeseman gets into an argument with someone, and it's over bubble gum, and the police come and I say, well, he put bubble gum on my front porch, or he dropped bubble gum on my sidewalk, and by the way, he owns a firearm. What's that? The red flag law? Does that actually go into effect?
The red flag law is a very, very dangerous law. It was not well thought out. New Jersey's version of the red flag law is probably the worst thought out red flag law. They actually went back and forth with it in the legislature 3 or 4 different times. They still haven't got it right. No, you're absolutely right. Other people can testify in court against me. People who don't know me at all can testify in court against me because of the gentleman who left the bubble gum or I left my bubble gum on the gentleman's porch, and he's upset about it, or vice versa, and he wants to take me to court, have my firearms taken away because he feels I'm a threat because I may have got it a little upset over the bubble gum on my porch. Well, other people can testify on his behalf against me. And these are people that I have never met before in my life. And that is all in our red flag law. And there's a lot of other states have adopted that same red flag law. The other problem is there's no due process. You're guilty before you're proven innocent. Your firearms are immediately confiscated. Your ammunition's confiscated. Your firearms ID card is taken away from you. And if you're lucky enough to have a carry permit, that will be revoked also until you can get in court and prove to a judge without a shadow of a doubt that you are a safe citizen and you didn't mean to get upset at your neighbor. I know a few people who have actually been through that process.
Mark, I spoke with someone some time ago who told me that he was in an argument in his workplace here in New Jersey with someone, regular like locker room type argument. And the person that he was arguing with got upset and called the police department and said, look, I was in an argument with this coworker. Just want you to know he's a hunter and he has several rifles. Well, there you go. The police end up going to see this guy, but his weapons were locked up away hundreds of miles away in some mountain somewhere in Pennsylvania. And they actually went to confiscate that.
Yeah. They'll go to that extreme if they have to. Yeah. Yep.
Before I go to the next question, Sydney, Australia just came on board. Australia, we're going to be doing some work with you down there. So welcome so much for joining us. All right. So you got the government trying to control, and I know it's happening in Canada, Australia, and other countries, trying to control the ability of the people to defend themselves, I think more so against government than criminals. Because, look, I know me, we don't want to see any violence, no revolutions, no armed conflict. In fact, I think it's fundamentally important for people to understand that the reason why people are fighting so hard for their right to bear arms, because it's their right. They just don't want that right taken away or hindered.
Exactly. No, we're not, we don't want to be police officers. We don't want to be vigilantes. We don't want to go clean up crime. We believe that that is still the job of the police, and we're happy to have them do it. It is for personal self-defense. Technically, you need to adhere to the use of deadly force laws. I cannot draw my weapon until I have imminent danger directly. The rule of thumb is an arm's length away. If somebody was 25 yards away from me and called me a bad name in a parking lot, I cannot draw my weapon and fire at them. That's murder.
You know, Mark, you're right. Now let's talk about two issues. First, let's talk about the Castle Doctrine. A lot of people don't understand that. And then let's talk about the stand your ground law. I think that's important we're giving people an education. I've gotten these questions when I shared with some people that you were coming on. So let's start with the Castle Doctrine.
Well, the Castle Law Doctrine varies from state to state, but it's actually an Old English law that a man's castle is his domain and he has a right to protect it as he sees fit. In the United States, we also have a Castle Law Doctrine, but like I said, they vary from state to state. I can only speak for New Jersey's Castle Law Doctrine, which was a very, very muddy gray area for people. In New Jersey, we don't have a stand your ground law like per se Florida does. So in New Jersey, if we were attacked on our front lawn per se, we have a duty to retreat into the home. And that doesn't mean go lock yourself in the bathroom. That means we have a duty to retreat in the home. Once we are in the home, if the assailant comes after us in the home, then we are well within our right to take necessary steps to defend ourselves.
One question there. I'm glad you mentioned that because I had a discussion with someone yesterday, and I think that they were wrong on one issue. The question was, or they believe that once that person comes into your home, if you have a way of escape and no one else is in that home, you are obligated to escape.
No, that's not correct. So a duty to retreat does not mean run out the back door or go lock yourself in the bathroom. That's not what it means. It means if you're in your yard, you have a duty to retreat into the house and lock the door. Hopefully the person outside who is bothering you or coming after you doesn't kick the door in and they just go away and you call the police. The first thing you should do is actually call the police in that type of a situation so they are well on their way before things escalate. But if that person does kick the door in or comes through a window, then you're well within your right to do what you have to do to defend yourself.
With regard to
out the back door or retreating any further, so that you are now in your castle.
With regard to stand your ground, you have to prove that you felt your life was in imminent danger before you would actually shoot someone, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
All right. So this idea that people, if they can't articulate that or prove that, they get into an argument and the other guy, they think he has a weapon, but they don't know if he has a weapon and then shoots him. That's a problem.
That's a very big problem for that person. And this is why I recommend that people who are just getting their carry permits or are new to carrying outside of the home, take a use of deadly force class. Learn the laws, learn what you can and cannot do, learn how, what are the escalations of the situation you're in, what warrants you to draw that weapon and what warrants you to not draw that weapon is very important.
Mark, do you have any statistics or any ideas? I know you may not because I didn't even look it up. I just heard where we're not being told is the number of legally armed people who have saved the lives of others, including their own life during the course of armed robberies, muggings, violent shootings. because I've read reports here and there that there have been criminals that have committed violent acts against people, and these people, the good guys, were armed and they prevented further violence and death.
Sadly, I don't even know that that data is available. It's certainly not available in my state. The only thing that we hear about in my state is gun violence, gun violence, gun violence. That's all we ever hear about here. We don't hear about, well, we don't hear about the good guy who may have stopped the perpetrator with a firearm and actually didn't have to shoot. He was just able to brandish his firearm and calmed everything down. So no, I don't have a good number for that, but I imagine that number is very significant, though.
Mark, the Supreme Court just ruled in favor of the right to bear arms, part of the Second Amendment. I know you fought very hard and very long. You're a humble guy, but you have been very, very instrumental in being part of what we saw take place in this country yesterday. So can you share with us, what does this mean? The average guy that doesn't understand what went on here, could you please give us some clarity on that?
All right. So it was the New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Braun. And Justice Thomas is the one that wrote the opinion. Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Barrett, and Alito all agreed. So it was a 6-3 win. And Thomas wrote the opinion. And in the opinion, Thomas, we were a little concerned about how Thomas would react, or what kind of opinion. Were we going to get a narrow opinion, a broad opinion? Were they only going to say that this only applies to New York? Well, Justice Thomas did exactly what I thought he was going to do, because he's been very angry about the Second Amendment being abused for a long time. You can see that in the Rogers dissent, where he wrote that we should have heard this case, and here's why. But in a nutshell, this opinion, this is going to last a long, long time, and this opinion hasn't even really been completely digested by everybody, what it's going to do for the Second Amendment in the United States. But basically, this opinion says that the outlying states like New York, New Jersey, California, Maryland, Hawaii, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, and I'm probably forgetting a few, do not have the right to attach proper cause, good cause, or justifiable need onto their permitting scheme, thus allowing a law-abiding citizen who has had a complete background check and who has passed the state requirements to carry a handgun outside the home and in public should be allowed to do so without fear of the justifiable need or proper cause retribution. So this case confirmed once and for all that the Second Amendment exists outside the home. It's a landmark case.
Mark, a lot of people from around the world, a lot of them, as you see, are watching. They're very discouraged, very distressed, upset. Some of them want to give up. I'm going to ask you to give them a word of encouragement, because you could have given up many, many times and you didn't. And you fought for many, many years. So could you share with them some words of encouragement to never give up? And I really believe they need to hear from a guy like you that's been on the ground forever, fighting and then winning.
I started this, I think, in 2006 or 2008. I didn't really know much of anything. I was just the guy who wanted to protect my family outside the home, because the neighborhood I lived in, quite frankly, was going downhill at a very, very speedy pace. So I wanted to be able to carry outside the home. I was told I couldn't, and I thought that was wrong. I did not agree with that. So I started to fight against it. I went to court twice. I was denied twice. I ran a case all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court didn't want to hear my case, along with 9 others. There were a lot of times where I felt like packing it up and just forgetting about it, and maybe it should be somebody else's problem, and I'll just wait and see what happens and hope for it and sit and pray for it. But I wanted to do a little bit more than that. I wanted to have a bigger hand in it, play a bigger role in it, and most of all, educate people more on what's going on and how your rights are being taken away. Did I want to give up? Yeah, countless number of times. Yeah. It took a lot of time away from my family. I can remember my daughter coming to me and asking me questions about things, and I was so deep into this that I don't even think I heard what she said. Uh, and looking back, that's very saddening and maddening. But would I do it over? Yeah, I would. I would do it over. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't retreat. Do what you need to do in a civilized, peaceful manner. Fight them with their own fire. They are wrong. They are wrong, and there's ways to prove they're wrong. You just need to seek out the ways to prove they're wrong, and educate other people who may be on the fence with whether or not we should be allowed to have a gun or carry a gun outside the home. Talk to them about it. Educate them. I was able to actually educate we have a group called Moms Demand Action here in the United States who are very, very anti-Second Amendment. And I was able to have very frank, good conversations with a lot of these women who finally said, well, you know what, I am wrong. You're right. Because they were just uneducated. They believe too much of the media brainwashing that's going on about guns. And I mean, every day we're talking about gun violence, but we're never talking about what a good guy's capable of doing with a gun or capable of not doing with a gun. So my advice to everybody is don't give up.
Mark Cheeseman, you are indeed a hero. Thank you for what you have done and are doing for justice in your country and here in Canada. Mark Cheeseman, you really had good impact on people tonight. And I know you're going to be joining us at Campaign for America.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you doing that, and we'll have you back on. But thank you for being a great American, a great fighter for freedom and liberty. And I'll see you soon. Thank you, Mark.
And good luck to everybody. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Well, there you go, folks. Mark says so himself, a grassroots guy back in 2006, 2008, just started to get involved. And this is what we are encouraging people all over the country to do. I have a few last words before we wrap up for my friends and neighbors in Canada. And it involves us here in the United States. But just stand by, folks. We'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you. All right, folks, just some final words before we leave this evening. You know, our fight for freedom and liberty, will go on forever. We here in the United States have been fighting for freedom and liberty since 1776. I will be on the air in Canada on July 4th. I will be on the air on one of your stations, and we're going to be talking about that on Friday night. I'll let you know more about that. I'll also be here in the United States talking about Canada Day and what it means to, I'm sure, many Canadians, but also Americans. But I want to give you a word of encouragement. I continue to get letters. I continue to read them. And by the way, if I'm not answering your letters, I am reading all of them. 800 over the past 48 hours. But I'm reading them, getting through them. Some of them I can answer, some of them I can't, but I know you understand. But I want you to know our prayers are with you. This week was very, very significant here in the United States of America. A lot of this that I'm about to share with you, you may not heard. Now, I want you to know, folks, that those of you who continue the good fight of faith, continue to fight it within the framework of the law. It works. Continue to fight it by prayer and putting your faith to work. I just want to go over 4 or 5 occurrences that just happened over the past week here in the United States. For decades, not weeks or months, but for decades, we fought for the right to life, and we won. For decades, we fought to our right to bear arms, and we won. For decades, we fought for our right for school choice, and we won. For decades, we fought for the right of religious freedom, and we won. And I must tell you, folks, that for decades, we will continue our fight to ensure that we here in the United States of America remain the land of the free and the home of the brave. My point is this, is that who are we, right? It says we won, right? We fought, we won. It's you, Mom. It's you, Dad. It's you, Grandma, Grandpa. It's you, Aunt and Uncle. It's you, the mother that is raising your children at home along with Dad so that they will have a good future. It's the single mothers, the single fathers. It's everyone put together that believes in freedom and liberty. We win all the time. And that's something that I've tried to share with people all over the world that are fighting for freedom and liberty. Justifiably so. People are concerned and they're upset. They see tyrants like Trudeau, tyrants like Biden, tyrants like the leaders of countries around the world who think that they could just sign a piece of paper and control our lives. But what they don't realize is that we know there was a piece of paper signed. There was a piece of paper called in the United States of America, the Constitution. In other countries, their Charter of Rights and Freedoms and whatever documents they have that delineate that people are to be free and that they are to be able to exercise their individual rights are God-given gifts. And I said this all along. The tyrants could fight as long as they want, as hard as they want, but those gifts of freedom and liberty are from God. They're divine. They are divine from the throne of a king called Jesus Christ. So they're not just doing what they're doing against us. They're doing against the Holy Writ. That's what they're doing. They're fighting against someone that they cannot defeat. Maybe they think they could defeat us, but they can't. They never have. It's a long-fought war. So as our parents and grandparents and those in the past in Canada, the United States, and other countries around the world have fought so very hard so that our flags can still fly and represent freedom and liberty, now it's our time. Now it's our turn. This is why it's important that you don't get so distressed that you're going to give up. I read something last night. My wife and I sat down. We were reading a Bible scripture. We try to at least once a week come together and do a short Bible study. And there was this scripture, it was in Proverbs that I never saw before. One thing about the Bible, every time you read it, you learn something, right? It said, acknowledge the Lord in all things and all ways. Acknowledge him in all things and all ways. And I'm looking at that. And I'm thinking, it doesn't say acknowledge him just when we're on the mountaintop. It doesn't say, well, acknowledge the Lord when things are going great. It says acknowledge him in all ways, in all things. And I'm thinking, we're to acknowledge him even when we're in the valley. Acknowledge him when we're even going through tough times. For it says in Romans 8:28, all things, not half things, not 80% of things, but all things work together for the good, for those who love the Lord thy God according to his will. I know it's tough to swallow at times, and sometimes I got to be the guy that swallows a lot. But you know, it's tough to swallow when you're going through the valley and you're going through tough times. It's tough to say, well, Lord, I don't know why I'm here, but thank you. I mean, who the heck wants to thank anybody for going through difficult times? But the difference between thanking a human being that puts you through tough times and a God that allows you to go through tough times is that the motives are different. A human being may raise hell with you and put you through tough times because they don't like you and they want to hurt you. God allows things to happen to us, to mold us, to refine us, and to do the ultimate thing he wants us to do is to become totally dependent on him, to draw closer to him. That's why the Bible says, now listen, folks, this is important. The Bible says, not by power, nor by might, but by the Spirit, saith the Lord. When the enemy comes in like a flood, says the Bible, like a flood, the Holy Spirit of God will raise an army against them. So guess what? You're the army. I'm the army. We're part of the army being raised against the enemies of liberty and freedom. That's why we say work within the framework of the law. There's the law books in your countries. There's the Constitution, the Charter of Rights, and there's another law book right here, another law book. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. They have never won. They have always lost. That's right. Our opposition has always lost throughout history, and we have always won. You got to remember, you're good people in Canada. You're good people in America. You're good people all over the world who believe in God, who believe in freedom, and who believe in liberty. Don't let anyone ever take that away from you. Never, never, never. In fact, they can't. You're so good. You're so good that you're praying and you're working hard to secure liberty and freedom, not only for those of us living today, but for our children and grandchildren and others who will be living tomorrow. That's it, folks. So we'll see you. Okay, we'll see you Friday night, Canada Day. We're going to be celebrating. And then on July 4th, somehow I'm going to be airing in one of your stations or one of your streamlined stations in Canada. We're still working on that. And we got a lot of great things happening. Right, folks? We got a lot of great things happening. So as Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, and that ilk are walking around, remember, see this? Their heads are down. They got to look behind them, left, right. They got to look all over. Our heads are up. Our heads are up, and we are looking straight ahead. And when we look up there, and we're looking up because as we look up, my eyes have looked upon the hills, whence cometh my help. All right, folks, God bless you all. God bless everyone across this planet who believes in freedom and liberty, and we'll be talking to you soon. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers.